video in my new series, How to Learn to Paint in a Loose Watercolor Style. If you're struggling with the loose style, this series will help you get the skills you need from the ground up. No more trial and error, no more just trying to copy what you see others doing. We take a very gentle approach to how to learn to work with the flow of watercolors to get the results that you want. If you're new here, my name is Teresa. I am a surface designer and watercolor artist. Now, if this is your first video, it's perfectly okay for you to just jump right in here. But to get the maximum benefit from this series, I would suggest going to the playlist and starting with the first video. Now, we start very, very gently and build our skills. They are made to work together. But especially if you have a little experience already with watercolors, jumping in right here is perfectly fine. All right. So today is the first video on flowers. The first three were on mark making, water control, and things like that. So I'm very excited. We're finally getting to flowers. But today we are going to concentrate on petals. Just like we did with the carrots, we're not just going to jump right into what we want our final result to be. We are going to take the skills we've learned so far and apply them to petals of flowers. So grab any paint you want, grab your paper, grab your paintbrushes that you've been practicing with, the thirsty ones, any round brush or mop brush, or just whatever you have that you're used to working with that will hold a lot of water. And let's get started on petals. On these exercises, we are just going to paint very loose petals, and I want you to experiment just as we did with the carrots with your water control and your pigment. Now, you can use reference photos for this if you would like. For instance, let's first look at this cherry blossom. Notice how frilly it is. So I just want to practice that basic shape. So I am going to load up my brush with lots of water, and I'll just grab a little bit of this pink, and the colors don't matter, whatever colors you want. All we're doing is just getting the basic shape. So if I look at these petals, they're kind of rounded. So I'm just going to do a little round shape, just like that. Just the petal. And of course, this flower is made up of lots of different petals all the way around it. And some of them are smaller, some are larger. Doesn't matter. And you may even want to drop in a little deeper color. You can play with that a little bit. But I'm not going to worry about the whole flower right now. We're just getting the feel for the shape of the petals. So just do these over and over. Let's try another one of those. And I'm looking very closely at the shape. They're more rounded, and they kind of have this little indentation like that. So don't overwork it. Just do some little petal shapes like that, okay? Let's do a few more. Notice I'm holding the brush very loosely, and I'm just doing some little rounded motions to get these shapes. Okay? And you can go back if you want. Say after that dries a little bit, let's add a little bit more. We're just practicing the charging technique. Okay, so that's enough for that one. Now let's pick a different flower. And just because my picture is orange, I'm going to go with a little bit of a peachy orange. Lots of water in my brush. Try to get all this in the frame. Now these petals are very long. Notice how they're bending backward. So they start out thin. So if we were looking at it straight, it would just be thin, and then it gets thicker and rounder like that. If we're looking at the basic shape of a lily. And honestly, this petal should be longer and thinner, but that's exactly the kind of thing we are practicing today, right? Learning the shapes of different flower petals. Now, when we paint loosely, we don't necessarily have to paint it exactly. That's the beauty of painting loosely, is there's a lot of leeway in what you do. If I wanted that petal to bend backwards, I would just cut it short. So to have a petal that bends backwards, we have the fat part, and then it's going to truncate off like that. And, you know, we're not going to get into all the techniques of foreshortening painting with your petals. I do have a video on that, but that's really not what we're doing in this one. So to loosen that up just a little bit, I'll put it right here. Add more water, because looseness is all about the water, right? I would just do something more along those lines, just a little more sketchy. And depending on the composition of the painting, I might have it bleed out a little bit on the sides if I want it extremely loose. Let's get some clean water. I might actually do something like that to have it bleed out into the background a bit. And, you know, if that's too much for you, take your paper towel and dab it up. So you determine how loose you want your paintings, as I've mentioned before. So today we are just going to practice individual petals and what kind of style you want. Now let's go for a different flower. A hibiscus is a fun one because it is very frilly in a different way than the cherry blossom. Let's get a little yellow since my flower is yellow. So on that flower, they're fairly broad. Might be a little too much. And it's very ruffly. Like that. And of course we would have little lines. That's not going to work. Let me grab. It has lots of lines. So we could just start drawing in these lines. Like that. And if we want that more loose, put that down here. Even more loose than that, depending on your composition. We might have something kind of light. Start out light. You might notice in loose painting, we don't cover the whole space usually. So see, I've left a lot of white space in here. And then we'll come back with some darker tones in here. Could even add a little orange down here. If the center of the flower were here, there might be even some orange. And that's probably a little much. So we could let that bleed in. During this practice session, we'll want to just practice with these little, we want to experiment with these little details. How do you add that extra color? How dark do you want your flower? You know, and again, like over here, if this is going to be extremely loose and we're going to allow it to bleed out into the background, play with those sorts of things. And while you're looking at different photos and you are learning about different shapes of flowers, you're going to find yourself gravitating to particular flower shapes. The one for me that I go back to all the time is, I usually do it with my black velvet brush, but I'll do it here. It's just kind of a, I don't even know what kind of flower this is, but this is the one that I paint all the time. And you will find yourself, you'll have this certain flower shape that you will find yourself gravitating toward. And it's okay if it's not any particular flower. That's okay. You're the artist. You get to do whatever you want to do. And a lot of times the stamen that I will use is not really the kind of stamen that I think goes on this particular kind of flower. That's okay. Don't let things like that bother you. If that's the flower you like to paint and it's not a real flower, who cares? It's pretty, right? So that's all that matters, is that you enjoy painting that. You have the license to paint however you want. You can put any kind of stamen on any kind of flower. So that's kind of light, and so I would just darken that up a bit. As it's drying, you can add to it. I would need to let that dry a little bit more to finish that out, but you get the idea. So that's really what I want you to do for the next couple of weeks, is practice different flower shapes. In order to paint very loosely, you do need to have an understanding of how a flower works and basic flower shapes. And then you can loosen it up as much as you want to once you have that basic understanding. I'll paint one more for you. So I'll move over to my black velvet, and let's do like a tulip sort of flower. Make sure you can see this. Oops, about to make a mess. So this will be a frilly tulip. So we all know the basic tulip shape. So I really want something a little different. One that's opening. Instead of being the typical closed tulip, this is one that's just opening. And we can add just a little detail back here. For those back petals. Now, and then we could put the stem and the greenery and all of that. But that's a very loose tulip. So after you've practiced a good many petals and you feel like you've got a good handle on that, then you're going to want to start putting together some flowers. So notice how this one, you know, the shape is there, but there's just something off about this one, right? This looks very flat. Although there's a little bit of a bowl shape here, for the most part, this is a flat flower. And I could have continued to add more details that would have helped a little bit, but this flower is never going to be a really good flower. It's just too lifeless. So think about that as you're practicing. We want to add life and movement to our flowers. And this is true regardless of whether you're painting more realistic or more loose. It doesn't matter. We really need that life in those flowers. An easy way to add a little life to your flowers is to add lots of curves. And notice how I did not complete the whole petal here. Leaving that kind of jagged like that adds movement. And you don't even really think about it. It just naturally adds movement. So you really don't need a good solid leaf every time. That's just something that you can play with. So let's look and see what that looks like. You kind of saw it a little bit over here in this one that I painted for you, but let's do it again and talk about it. I usually start with the back petal. Let's see, I don't know what kind of flower this is going to be. Let's do something like this. Okay. Then we can go over here, and so we want our flowers to be bowl shaped for the most part. And you want to think about your perspective. Are we looking at this flower straight on, or is it going to be tilted in some way? Because you don't want all your flowers to be looking straight on. You want some to be looking that way, some that way. That just adds movement and interest as well, and more realistic setting. So we'll have, I grabbed the wrong orange, and that's okay. We'll just add that in. And I'll leave some room in here for the middle. Added a little darkness down here for shadowing. And then we'll tuck in another one. Let's tuck in one that's a little bit different color. Maybe this one's going to really look in that direction. We won't even see the center of this one. So do some little light strokes. A little color. If it's too much, you just wipe it up. Let me add a little yellow in here. And I don't want to completely fill in the center. We want some white showing. Otherwise it just becomes a big blob like this. And just to kind of finish this off a little bit, let's add in some greenery. But we will get into painting greenery and all the other details next time when we complete our series by painting a whole loose floral composition together. In the meantime, I hope you have fun exploring different petal shapes. Thanks for joining me today, and I hope to see you next time. If you haven't already checked out the other videos in this series, check out this one. It's the first one, and I have to say, it's a lot of fun. The links are down below, as well as coming up on the end screen.